This week on Camera Talk, looking at a little friend of mine, a little pocket compact camera. It's, oh, you got mail. It's a Lumix, Panasonic LX100 II. It was released in 2018. As you know, I'm mostly a full frame shooter. You know, I use an APS-C for my videos here, but generally I use bigger things than this. But this is a perfect pocket-sized camera. It literally can fit in your pocket. Great for tours, as in on vacation somewhere. It's great for street photography, very discreet. But the little features that this thing has punches way above its weight.
Striker! Striker!
So that's what I want to talk about this week, is why I would have this when I have some other killer stuff. As you can see behind me here, some Leicas and some Sonys and so forth and so on. But I just want to talk about this week. So it's the Lumix LX100 II. So let's check it out together.
Here I am, Vietnam.
This is Camera Talk with Dr. Scott. All right, this week we are looking at yet another part of the family. As you know, my favorites are my two Leicas, my two Sonys, my Canon that I used to shoot my videos with. But something I haven't talked about yet. You know, I talked about my little hero, my GoPro. You know, I haven't really got into some of these cameras up here, but one that has been of interest of mine, and it's great little bang for the buck. As I said in the intro, it punches way above its weight. As Al Pacino would say, let me introduce you to my little friend.
Say hello to my little friend!
And my little friend is a Panasonic Lumix LX100 II. No, this is nothing new. I mean, this thing's been out on the market since 2018. Here we are pushing 2022. So it's already a 4-year-old camera. And you would think, well, that's, you know, why are you talking about 4-year-old equipment? My other equipment's even older than that. So, you know, the predecessor to this, the LX100, came out 4 years prior to this, 2014. And yet people are still raving about it. You know, again, bang for the buck, the things that it can do. So I want to talk about it. It's a great little, again, a compact. I mean, it's not as small as some of the others out there on the market.
That's what she said!
You know, some of the Sonys are pretty tiny. You know, a few of the Canons are pretty tiny compared to this. But this is still pretty tiny. I mean, I don't have big hands, but I can really only hold it with 2 fingers and a thumb. You know, when I have a finger on the shutter button, you know, I have 2 fingers holding here and my thumb, so my baby finger's kind of coddling it. So it's not a big camera at all. But the things that it can do, you know, are what really builds a fan club in such. And you know, as you know, I have Leicas, and I'm a Leica fan. The equivalent of this is the Leica Deluxe 7. Pretty much identical. I mean, if you put them head to head, which people have done, I think you know, if you're giving them points, you know, the Deluxe 7 is only like if you're talking out of 100, and you know, and the Deluxe 7 gets a 94. This one will get a 91. So it's not that big a difference between the two. But of course, the Leica is a Leica, so it's much more expensive. Not that much, but it's hundreds more expensive than this one. So why not get the next best thing? Save some bucks. That's what modesty photography is all about, right? Saving you money and things like this. So, you know, why does this camera, you know, attract so much attention, you know, from people who want a little pocket camera?
Why would I know that?
One is the kind of the old school feel that this camera has. It has, it has aperture ring that you can set from 1.7. I mean, the lens is it's a Leica lens. It's a Summilux 1.7 all the way to f/16 that you can set yourself, or put on auto and let the camera decide the aperture for you, aperture priority. It has a manual focusing ring that can be utilized at any time, whether you're in full auto or not. It has a shutter selection at the top. It has exposure compensation at the top. It has 5 customizable buttons that you can, set up whichever makes you happy in that regard. It has, because it's a zoom, it has, wide goes to 24 millimeters. Telephoto goes all the way to 75 millimeter equivalent. Full frame equivalent. It has an AI feature, which is pretty cool. It's like an artificial intelligence auto mode kind of thing.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
Which is pretty cool. I mean, there's lots of things that this camera does that other cameras may do better at certain things. Like the Sony is better with the autofocus, with the eye autofocus.
Am I still in the thumbnail?
So maybe a quicker autofocus. Other cameras are faster at zooming in and out, so forth and so on. They have maybe better frames per second rate. But collectively speaking, all together, this little guy does things that the others don't.
Well, isn't that special?
At least there's some things in here that the others don't offer. So therefore, it's a kind of a one-stop shop in that regard. So, again, starting at the top, again, it's a Lumix Panasonic LX100 II, released in 2018. Its lens is a Leica Summilux. It's a DC Vario Summilux. Goes from 1.7 to f/16. It's a telephoto lens. It's stabilized lens. Its sensor inside is a 4/3, which is big. I mean, compared to the Sony and Canon one, they're 1-inch sensor. So this is actually a larger sensor. It's the same sensor shared with the Panasonic GX9. So again, it's a famous sensor already. It's 20 megapixels. It's actually 21 something, but the workable size of the megapixels actually used is 17, and that's because of the lens itself. The design of the lens can only capture 17 megapixel within its circle. And of course, if you wanted to cover the entire 20 megapixel, the lens would be much larger, so you would lose its compactness. So 17 is plenty good though for what you get, and I'll show you samples. I'll show you plenty of samples of this, what this sensor can do. It's got multi-aspect ratio, so instead of like a typical camera that you would point and shoot and take pictures of things, and then later you would crop to size. If you're an Instagram poster, you want a 1:1, so you would have to crop to that and whatnot. You can do that in camera here. There's across the top of the lens, there's 4 settings for your aspect ratio. Starts at 3:2, 16:9, 1:1, and 4:3 ratio. So again, it uses various elements of that sensor, taking advantage of the 20 megapixels, but collectively as a whole only uses 17. But still, being able to click and set whichever aspect you want to take a photo with before you even take the photo just saves you having to crop later and whatnot, thus getting, you know, better resolution out of your original photo. Now on the side of the lens here, we also have autofocus, manual focus, and autofocus macro. So we got a macro lens capability as well. And at the widest, on 24mm equivalent, you can get in as close as 3 centimeters. That's this close. At 75, at the full extent, it's 30 centimeters. Which again, even, you know, something like on my rangefinder, you can only get 70 centimeters is as close as you can get to focus on anything. So again, excellent capabilities. What else can I say? 4K. It's got 4K video, which is kind of expected these days. But it also has 4K photo burst mode, which means you set it to 4K photo burst, and then you could take a rapid burst of 4K grade photos, and you can use those for various special features. And some of those are like sequence composition. So you've seen those pictures where you see your subject in the photo in different positions in the same photo. So he or she is here, he or she is there, he or she is here. And you know, you may wonder sometimes, how do you do that in Photoshop or something? No, you could do that right in camera with the features that this has, and it's called sequence composition. You could do time-lapse videos, you could do focus stacking, you could do post-focus. So post-focus means, you know, again, the photo burst takes a rapid amount of number of photos, and you know, let's say you're taking you know, a group picture, and you wanted to focus in on your girlfriend or on your kid or something like that, but it actually ended up focusing on your grandmother or something, and yeah, dear old grandma.
At least we're not fucking idiots.
But she wasn't the focus of your photo. You didn't really need her crystal sharp, but your girlfriend wasn't, or your kid wasn't. So you can actually change the point of focus in the photo by doing it in camera, and it uses the focus collection to be able to, you know, manipulate the point of focus in that. So again, it's a great feature that's added in there. It uses a Venus engine processor, which reduces, you know, artifacts and things like moire. You know, it uses a low pass filter to avoid that. And it has cell phone connectivity, so you can use your cell phone as a remote. You can set this up and then, you know, hook up through Wi-Fi and focus in, take pictures and so forth and so on with your camera. So you can actually be in the picture just using your cell phone to, again, focus in and snap that shot and so forth and so on. So again, that's kind of cool, right? You know, what else can I say? It has electronic viewfinder. It's not the greatest in the world. Actually, it's the same one from the original LX100. So that's some of the complaints that people have had. You know, hey, why can't you upgrade to a better EVF? But for my own use, it's good enough. Again, it's a small little pocket camera. The screen on the back is an upgrade again from the original. I don't know the exact numbers. You know, 2.3 million dot or something like that. 2.7, it's 2 point something million dot, and it's touchscreen. So again, you can touch focus. You can change settings. You can do everything on the screen itself. It's got a great menu, much better than this guy, I tell you. For those who are Sony shooters, you know how lame their menu setup is. But on the Panasonic, it's pretty rocking. I mean, it follows a pretty simple structure. It's easy to find your stuff. But again, because of the 5 different customizable buttons, you'll find that you don't really need to go into the menu all that often. Everything is pretty much just one button away, or even on the wheel itself. You can program that to do various things as well. Fully auto works great. I mean, again, that AI or the IA feature, it's not actually AI, it's IA, but it acts as AI. And you can set you could do shutter priority, you could do aperture priority, or you just do full auto, or you could do full manual, either or any or.
Thanks for noticing me.
You know, again, which is an option that a lot of cameras don't give you. So, you know, as I said, how can you go wrong with something like this? It's under $1,000, but you know, again, I bought it used, just like everything I buy used. So for me, it was maybe $500, $400 or $500, you know, for something like that does all this stuff. And I'll show you things that it can do. You know, pictures of Dylan, of course. Aww. You know, I use Dylan for everything, so I'll give you shots of Dylan at throughout the range from 24 millimeter all the way to 75, and with the sequence composition and stuff like that, just to show you again the things it can do. Maybe I'll try a time lapse, and depends how cooperative he'll be with me. You know, he's only 1.5 years, so babies can be only so cooperative. But anyway, let me show you some of that stuff here. All right, so how wow is that, right? And then, you know, showing you some other capabilities that it has, you know, for macro and things like this. I can show you that here. And lastly, how about talk about this lens, right? This is the Leica part, you know, as much as that's what kind of first attracted me to it. And it's funny, the guy I bought it from too actually has a Leica button for the shutter release, which is kind of cool. So it's got the red dot up here. But the lens itself again, it's a Leica lens, so it's pretty excellent quality. It's 11 elements in 8 groups. There's 5 aspherical lenses. There's 8 aspherical surfaces. There's 2 dual-sided ED lenses, and you know, again, the glass quality is Leica glass, so it's, you know, it's definitely not a, well, actually that's not a Leica lens anyway, but it's definitely not a Leica killer lens like a 50 Summilux or this 35 Summilux or anything like that, or the Summicrons or things, but it's still Leica, and therefore it's still very good quality.
Yeah, baby.
But it's a zoom, you know, it's a zoom lens. It's got 9 aperture blades, so it's got some cool sun stars and cool bokeh, especially at 1.7. You know, I'll show you some of that. Uh, 392 grams, so it's 0.86 ounces. You know, it's not, again, you can have that in your pocket and not really worry about it too much. Oh, one thing about pockets too that I remember, the LX100 did have a problem with, because of the, when the lens extends and then retracts. So, you know, if you're going telephoto or wide, the original LX100 had a dust collection issue. So when it sucked in, it would sometimes pull depending on the environment you're in, because it's not weather sealed. so it would suck in dust. Panasonic has claimed that they have corrected that. They've worked on it to create a better seal so that you're not getting dust migrating into your lens and onto your sensor. And again, this one, even though it's a used camera, I've checked it out and there's no dust spots anywhere on it. So it's a clean sensor, so I have to tend to believe them on that. It's a 3.1 optical zoom, which is kind of nice, and USB charging. The battery is not huge, but again, it's a pocket. It's a pocket camera. So you charge with a USB cable or with a charger. It doesn't come with a charger, but mine did. The owner already had a charger. It does not come with a built-in flash, but it comes with a little mini flash that you can mount on the hot shoe. I'm not much of a flash shooter myself, especially a little dinky flash like that is probably not going to do much anyway. So I'd rather just not need it. I don't do a whole lot of nighttime shooting anyway. If I did, I'd use a 50mm 0.95 to capture whatever little light is out there. So I wouldn't be using this in those situations anyhow. But again, for bang for the buck, I don't know what else I could tell you about this. It's a pretty cool little camera for what it does. Would I recommend it? Very, very much so. Sure, there's, like I said, the Sony RX100 out there and Mark 7 or whatever it's up to these days. Has better resolution, better autofocus and things like this, but this is an older camera. And there's features on here that the Sony doesn't have, and the Canon doesn't have, the latest little pocket Sony cameras either. So I still would recommend this one over them, especially for the price too. Again, you get this used for $400 or $500. How could you go wrong with that? So that's pretty much Dr. Scott's recommendation for a pocket camera, compact camera, the LX100 Mark II. They don't even have a Mark III yet, because I don't think this thing is so good. I don't think they're even going to make a Mark III. Don't mark my words on that, but there's a good chance that they may not, because this thing is great the way it is. So last thing I want to say is, well, not the last thing, but next thing I want to say is my little plug for Luminar. Luminar AI and Luminar Neo are the, Neo's not, well, it might be released by the time this video comes out, but it replaces Luminar 4, and it's a great alternative to the Lightroom and Photoshop and all that. Now it's also a plug and play with those too. You can use them in tandem with those, but they're a lot cheaper. Lumix, that's a Lumix. Luminar is only like $55, $65, depends on which one you get. And if you click below, you'll get a $10 discount.
Holy crap!
To which I actually make a little off that too, so I can make a few bucks. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, give it a shot. You could test drive it, see if it works for you. Works for me. I mean, all these things are edited, and I always recommend that you edit your shots anyway if you want something to look a little cooler than just coming out of camera. Ooh, one thing I forgot to mention about this too. It's got some pretty cool artistic filters and color features and things like this that you can play around with. It also, because it is a Panasonic, it borrows some of the tools from its bigger brothers. So it has an L monochrome and an L monochrome D. and film grade things like this that you can add in there. So you can do a lot of cool stuff with this. You know, I can't talk enough about this, and I can't remember everything about it too. There's so many things about this camera that, I mean, this little guy here does more things than this one and this one combined. I mean, there's more features in that. So again, if that doesn't sell you on it, I don't know what would. But anyway, how about you support my channel? And how are you going to support it? Well, help me to get exposed to the masses. And subscribe. And, you know, if you've got a friend that you could pass this along to and ask for their help too, do it for me. Subscribe. And if you've got a boyfriend, girlfriend, another significant other, what's the pronouns out there? A he, she, and a she and her, and he and him, or whatever your pronouns are. Why don't you ask them to subscribe? And last but not least, give me a thumbs up so that I can show off the thumbs up girls. And I think now, last but not least, why don't you be safe out there, yeah? Because this is a weird time we're living in. Every other week it seems there's a new variant of COVID-19 coming out. So be safe. Don't go getting yourself, you know, getting infected by this thing and ending up in the hospital, or worse, end up in the ground. Because then how are you going to watch my videos, right? So don't die. Come back for more. Remember, because you belong here. And where do you belong? At Camera Talk with Dr. Scott. So come on back next week and we'll talk about something else. We'll talk about another camera. We'll talk about another lens. We'll talk about something to do with photography anyway. Or if you have a recommendation in the comments, you want to talk about something else, go right ahead. You know, being a university teacher, I can go on forever, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to stop now though. So you have yourself a great week, a great weekend, and come on back next week and stay safe out there and take care. All right, so last thing I could say is bye-bye.
Here I am, Vietnam. Rain is always